Take a look at Razor Ramon. I told you, Mike. I told you, Sean. I told you that Razor Ramon was the man. And he's going into the Hall of Fame, and I could not be more happy for the guy if I tried. The only thing that I don't understand is Vince McMahon is putting Razor Ramon, the character, in the Hall of Fame and not Scott Hall. I guess it's in his own mind, him being senile as always. I never understood that. I mean, what are you going to put Diesel in there instead of Kevin Nash? How about 1, 2, 3 Kid instead of X-Pac or Sean Waltman? Put the guy in there. Scott Hall had a long, great career, man. Not just as Razor Ramon. What's the deal with that? Anyways, though, it's your boy KC. How y'all doing? This is episode 6 of the show. I'm going to talk about Razor Ramon today, or Scott Hall, in case Vince McMahon forgot who that is. It's the same guy. This is a 4-time Intercontinental Champion, which was unheard of back then because you don't hold the belt 16,000 times like you do these days. Back then, when you had the belt for 3 or 4 times, it was something special. The 2 ladder matches between him and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 10 and SummerSlam was awesome. That's what started the ladder movement. The stuff today was great, but that's what started it. Even though the first ladder match with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, it was overshadowed. And what a lot of people don't seem to remember is the fact that Razor Ramon had a huge push. He had one of the biggest pushes that any wrestler could get back then. It wasn't long after he came in that he was teaming with Nature Boy Ric Flair in a main event match against Mr. Perfect and Macho Man Randy Savage. Then he went on to challenge Bret Hart for the WWE title, which I feel that he should have gotten a run with. I believe that Razor Ramon would have been a great heel champion. He had so much crowd heat, and it would have been a cooler rivalry if you had Bret Hart chasing Razor Ramon for the title, the babyface chasing the bad guy. After a while, he became a good face. The fans got behind him, and he was so far over that I still believe he should have had a run with the title. I believe he would have drew in money. I believe fans would have paid to see Razor Ramon, the WWF champion, but it never happened. Other than that, he had great accolades. He made it cool to be the bad guy. Everything he did was cool, from the toothpick to the fireworks, the pyro. I believe that was one of my favorite entrances of all time, to see him do that. And congratulations to him. I want to talk about the differences between wrestling past and present. There are a lot of things that I feel that were in the golden era and the attitude era that were eliminated from the era that we have now. And there were a lot of fans that didn't grow up through that time like I did, in the 80s and the 90s. And I made a list of things that they had then that they just don't have now, that this era is just lacking, starting with great promo work. When you had guys like Macho Man Randy Savage and Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and Jake the Snake Roberts, guys who actually had to promote their characters. In order for my character to be popular, I got to make myself popular. There were no rehearsals back then. There were no writers writing the stuff for them. They just put them behind a green screen and they just had them go at it. And it can be bad sometimes when you have a guy like the Ultimate Warrior come along, a guy who just talked just to talk and talked out the side of his head, and you really need a closed caption to understand what this guy was talking about back then. What happened tonight was already written, Hulk Hogan. It was written a long time ago when the Warriors, they came before me and you and saw to it that what we must do is beyond us, Hulk Hogan. I stood with my back to you, Hulk Hogan, and I knew you would not come. But when I looked into your eyes, I saw walls filled with fear, walls that were bloody thick for you, Hulk Hogan. Tonight's Royal Rumble, I needed no friends, I needed no partners. Every man stands by himself like the Ultimate Warrior always has. But Hulk Hogan, you still do not understand. You still have mistrust. Look on the walls. Look on the walls of the arenas. The Warriors, they could not come have attached themselves to the outer structures. They ran on my back for my protection. I need not your protection, Hulk Hogan. They ran on my back, feeding me with the power to survive. As you look on the walls, the red and yellow, they're questioning, do you, Hulk Hogan, have what it takes to answer the ultimate challenge of your life? And it's like, what the hell is wrong with this guy, dude? Is he has too much caffeine or something? But it was still awesome enough for the fans to love back then. They also had great storylines back then, like my favorite one between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. Something as simple as putting Miss Elizabeth in between the both of them was pure brilliance. The only thing that I did not understand is why Macho Man Randy Savage was the heel. Why was he the bad guy in this whole thing? Hulk Hogan, to me, was the heel in this storyline because he was hitting on the man's wife, grabbing her ass, putting her on his shoulders. And if somebody had did that to my wife, I would clean his clock too. I would knock his ass out with the belt myself. So why was Macho Man the heel? Not to mention, why did he have to drop the belt to Hogan? Wouldn't it have been better for Macho Man to defend his wife's honor and beat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 5? But since Hulk Hogan was the top star, he had to win, the largest stars in the world, brother. Stuff like that. Just something you had to deal with. The classic rivalry between Macho Man Randy Savage and Jake the Snake Roberts. Back then when you had Jake terrorizing Miss Elizabeth, putting a snake in their wedding presents, having the snake bite Macho Man Randy Savage while he was tied up in the ropes, him slapping Miss Elizabeth. So much drama and creativity in that angle. What about the angle with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant where you had a bad influence, Bobby the Brain Heenan, in Andre the Giant's ear saying, listen, you're better than Hulk Hogan. You've always been better than Hulk Hogan. You should be the champion. And Andre the Giant turning on Hulk Hogan. What about the rivalry between the Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior? The Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, where it's just Ultimate Warrior wanting Hulk Hogan's spot, giving him the ultimate challenge, wanting Hulk Hogan to pass the torch, which was rightfully his. Managers. I don't even think they have managers anymore. They had managers that were the mouthpieces, managers that were just pure entertaining, that completed the wrestler's personality when they had none. You had Bobby the Brain Heenan speaking for Andre the Giant because Andre the Giant could not speak English that well. You had Paul Bearer speaking for The Undertaker because Undertaker was still trying to find his voice. You had entertaining managers like Captain Lou Albano and Classy Freddie Blassie managing back then. You had $1 Million Man and his corporation team. So many pieces to this pie. You had more technical wrestling. You had more high-flying ability back then with Superfly Jimmy Snuka and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Macho Man Randy Savage. You had better variety of wrestlers back then, better gimmicks. You find me a guy from this day and age in WWE or TNA or ROH or whatever you want to find that could create a character like The Undertaker, that could create a character like The Ultimate Warrior. Even though The Ultimate Warrior's promos were weird, they were weird, his character was awesome. You find me a guy that was supposed to make kids believe that he has superpowers, that he has superhuman strength, that he was just, guys like Hulk Hogan, guys like Macho Man. You cannot create something like that. Even the Attitude Era where you had The Rock, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, all those guys, Kane. You find me guys that could create characters like that these days. They can't. They cannot do that. Speaking of the Attitude Era, they learned how to push the envelope and they had more sex appeal, more cursing, more storylines. I know that stuff was bad, but damn, it was good. You tell me, there are a lot of guys and a lot of women in this world that would love to do to their bosses what Stone Cold Steve Austin did to Vince McMahon. He made that guy's life a living hell, pouring cement in the guy's car, hitting him in the head with a bedpan, attacking him in the hospital, driving Zambotis and crashing into the ring and beating him up, driving a beer truck to the ring and spraying The Rock and Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon. Damn, that stuff was awesome. Let me calm down, man. Let me catch my breath there because I was starting to get excited there. Anyways, though, they have more teams, more factions. I don't even think they have factions these days. Back then, they had D-Generation X, the Four Horsemen. They had the DOA. They had the Los Boricuas. They had the the Nation of Domination. They had the Corporate Ministry or the Ministry of Darkness. It was awesome back then. You had the classic matches between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H, Stone Cold and Undertaker, Undertaker and Kane, Undertaker and Mankind, Undertaker and Vader. There was just so much stuff going on back then. Everybody had their own storylines. The women had stuff to do. It was awesome. I'm telling you. Now we got the present day wrestling where they have so much stuff that's missing. It's too censored. It's too damn long. There's not enough wrestling. The Divas division sucks. Breaking kayfabe, which was the biggest mistake in wrestling. You had too much drama, too much comedy crap that's not funny. The titles don't mean a damn thing anymore. At all. Titles is nothing but big pieces of metal that these guys carry on their shoulders. There's no prestige in anything. Man, that was a mouthful. Now I compile my own list of top 5 guys who probably could make it in the Attitude Era. Dolph Ziggler could make it back then because he has the look, he has the promo skills, and he can wrestle. Brock Lesnar sure as hell could have made it back then, going up against those guys back then. Samoa Joe could make it with those guys back then. Abyss, I could see Abyss going up against Kane when Kane first came out. I'm talking about Abyss when he first came out versus Kane, that strong Kane that felt no pain. That would be awesome. And Bobby Roode was sure as hell make it back then in the Attitude Era. I also did a list of guys that should have got a big push in their careers, but they never got the chance to be the face of the WWE or be WWE champion. Starting off with Hardcore Holly, Bam Bam Bigelow, Ravishing Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, Brian Pillman, Dean Malenko, Owen Hart, Shelton Benjamin, John Morrison, and Dustin Runnels, or Goldust, either one. All these guys were awesome, awesome wrestlers. John Morrison and Shelton Benjamin could do things in the ring that none of these guys could do these days, but they never got their chance. Bam Bam Bigelow, a big guy that could do moonsaults and cartwheels and fly around the ring like that guy used to do, and never got a chance to be champion. Mr. Perfect, do I even need to explain why this guy needed to be the champion? He was Mr. Perfect in every single way. He made guys look like fools in the ring. The guy could wrestle his ass off. Brian Pillman, can you imagine him as a WWE champion with the loose cannon gimmick? All the crazy stuff that he would be able to do to people just because of his character? Dean Malenko, a guy that was always stuck in the cruiserweight division, a guy who could pretty much out-wrestle anybody in WCW other than Chris Benoit. He should have at least been U.S. champion at least, but they kept the cruiserweight title on him. I think he was television champion. I don't remember. Owen Hart, I believe to this day, I don't care what Bret Hart fans say, I believe that Owen Hart could out-wrestle his brother. He was better. He was a better high flyer. He had more speed than Bret. He did better moves than Bret. And I believe that he should have been a champion. The only reason why he was not the champion is because Bret Hart was on top and Shawn Michaels was on top. It's ridiculous, man. I also did a list of the worst champions and the worst runs. I'm putting them all together, compiled it into a list. Starting with Kevin Nash. When he was the WWF champion, he did awful. His matches were boring. Are you kidding me? He drew no money. Nobody gave a shit when Kevin Nash was the champion the first time around. Psycho Sid. Stone Cold Steve Austin when he was in the Alliance. That was the worst run that Austin had as champion. The Great Khali because they put the title on a guy who could not wrestle. Who was not entertaining. Who had no personality. The Undertaker's first run when he only had the belt for 4 days before he lost the belt to Hulk Hogan again that Tuesday in Texas. Which Hulk Hogan cheated, of course. But good guys can cheat if you're Hulk Hogan. Kane's first run when he only had the belt for 1 damn day before Stone Cold Steve Austin took the belt back from him. Hulk Hogan's last run because he was too old. Hulk Hogan looked like if he was going for a leg drop, he would break into pieces if he landed on the ground. That's how old the guy was. Hulk Hogan couldn't do much of anything when he was a champion before he lost the belt to Triple H. JBL, because JBL just sucks. He just sucks. I don't care what nobody says. He just absolutely grade A sucks. Big Show's first run, because it didn't last that long before Triple H took the belt from him. He was just a transitional champion. Sting's last WCW championship run, because it was Sting's heel turn when he turned on Hulk Hogan, and nobody wanted to see Sting as a heel. Sting is one of those guys that could not be a heel. Everybody just loves him that much that they don't want to see him be a bad guy. Guys like him and Rey Mysterio and Kofi Kingston could never be bad guys. They can never be heels. They're too lovable. The Rock is another one of those guys too, even though he was a great heel in 2003. Okay, Goldberg's WWE title run. It should have been more. It should have been better than what it was. They waited too long. I believe that Goldberg should have won the title in the Elimination Chamber match, but it ended up being Triple H as always. So by the time Goldberg won the title, it really didn't mean anything and nobody cared. Vince Russo. Why in the blue hell was Vince Russo the WCW champion? Somebody explain that to me. How was that good for business? Vince Russo, the guy that everybody hates, the guy that was a writer for WCW. Nobody cared about him. Why was he the champion? What dumbass was smoking enough weed to say, hey, let's make Vince Russo the champion, man? That would be great, man. You gotta be kidding me, dude. David Arquette, a guy that's an actor, a half-ass actor who really sucked. I really didn't give a crap about him just because he had one movie where they had WCW stars in it. Who cared? He was garbage. Publicity, nothing. He wasn't Mr. T. He wasn't Cyndi Lauper. He wasn't Mike Tyson. You mean to tell me they couldn't find somebody else? I mean, nobody needed to be the champion for the celebrity circuit anyways. You had Vince McMahon as the WWE champion and the ECW champion. The only reason why Vince McMahon was the champion is because he wanted to say he was the WWE champion. Come on, Vince. What a way to feed your ego. Did they really need some old guy being a champion? Come on, man. He can't wrestle. All he did was just to make himself feel good. There was no reason for him to be the champion. And last but not least, Rey Mysterio, when he won the title and lost it in the same night, I think he won it from Randy Orton, only to have Triple H beat him for the title in the same night. That was pitiful. A list of my favorite finishers from wrestlers: The Undertaker's Tombstone Piledriver, Stone Cold's Stone Cold Stunner, the Macho Man Randy Savage Elbow, the Crippler Crossface from Chris Benoit, the Razor's Edge from Scott Hall or Razor Ramon, the Dudley Death Drop from the Dudley Boys, the Scorpion Death Drop from Sting, the Pearl River Plunge that Ahmed Johnson used to use, Double Arm DDT that Mick Foley would use, the Diamond Cutter with Diamond Dallas Page, and the Jackhammer from Goldberg. Those are my favorite finishers of all time. Even though I'm a huge wrestling fan, I always will be, good God, did they have some bad, horrible storylines. I mean, they were just some storylines that make you wonder what the hell these guys were on when they made this stuff. And that's what this list is. Top 10 of the worst storylines of all time. Starting with number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The good Stone Cold Steve Austin. The guy that hugged people. The guy that played the guitar for Vince McMahon. The guy that sung karaoke songs. Gee whiz, I just love this Austin. The hell I did. Who the hell thought that would be a good idea to take Stone Cold Steve Austin? The biggest badass that they had back then. The no-nonsense guy who kicked everybody's ass. I think if you keep talking to me like that, I might have to hinder your life. What were they thinking? They turned him into this guy that was just happy-go-lucky dude. Vince, I love you. You're my best friend and all that. What? It was horrible. Then you have number 2, the Katie Vick angle with Kane and Triple H, where Triple H brings up a girl from Kane's past, a girl that Kane killed or whatever happened to her, I forgot. Where you got Triple H with a Kane mask having sex with a dead body. Vince McMahon, what the hell were you drinking, man? Did you honestly think that this would be entertaining? Man, you gotta lay off that stuff. You gotta lay off it, man. Then you got JBL and Shawn Michaels, number 3, where Shawn Michaels was so bankrupt that he needed to work for JBL. Seriously, let's get real. This is Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels had more money than any other guy back then in the 90s. Let's get real. Then you have Hulk Hogan fighting up against the Dungeon of Doom. That's number 4. Where you have Hulk Hogan go up against this group of mediocre characters that somebody was just sitting at home watching a monster movie and said, hey, we need a mummy in WCW. So they have this guy, the Yeti, or the Yeti, as they like to say, come out there dressed as a mummy and dry humps Hulk Hogan to death. Yes, I said dry hump Hulk Hogan like Bobby Brown style humping somebody. Go back and watch that video and you'll see what I'm talking about. It was horrible. Then you have Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior in WCW the second time around, where Hulk Hogan was just so down about losing his match against the Ultimate Warrior. He brings the Warrior in and has the worst match in WCW history, if not one of the worst matches in wrestling history, period. Hulk Hogan trying to burn the Ultimate Warrior but ends up burning his own damn face. Burns his eyebrows off. That was the funniest thing ever. It was the worst catastrophe match ever. Period. It just sucks. Sucks. Then you have the AJ Styles baby mama drama angle, where you had this really bad actress come out and play this girl named Claire Lynch, who comes out there with a damn doll dressed as AJ Styles. Talk about do what's right for your baby, AJ. Do what's right for him. Once. At least they could have found a better woman to act. At least make it believable. Come on, man. It was obvious that they just picked her up out of acting class or something. She was horrible. Then you have Hulk Hogan versus the Giant, WCW, where Hulk Hogan threw the Giant off the side of a building, and the Giant was supposed to be dead, but somehow comes out there and has a regular title match against Hulk Hogan. And I was like, wow, Superman, eat your heart out. Then you have the angle with John Cena and Zack Ryder and Eve Torres. This love triangle that really did not exist, with Zack Ryder having a huge crush on Eve Torres, which I don't see how somebody can have a crush on her because she's fine as hell. In fact, I have a crush on her. But then you have her trying to use Zack Ryder and trying to use John Cena to get herself ahead, which really didn't happen. Nobody really gave a damn about it. Nobody cared. Moving on. Number 9, Batista and Great Khali. Where you have Khali trying to scare Batista so badly that he takes a basketball and he squeezes the air out of the basketball. And then you have Batista try to copy Bruce Lee. Yo, remember in Enter the Dragon when that guy broke the board and he said, "Boards don't hit back." You had Batista saying basketballs don't hit back. Really? Bruce Lee is rolling over in his grave right now. And last but not least, number 10, you have The Rock versus the Hurricane, where The Rock was pretty much on his way out. Nobody really cared. You just had the Hurricane talk about he was a better superhero than the Scorpion King. I could care less about both of them. That's pretty much, out of The Rock's work, that was pretty much the lowest he's ever been, because he was on his way out anyways. Nobody really cared. Then you have the top 10 best feuds in my opinion. My favorite feuds of all time. Number 1, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, 1997, and versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. You had Shawn Michaels back then in 1997 just being a thorn in The Undertaker's ass. Every chance that he got, he just wanted to do things just to annoy The Undertaker and got his ass whooped. Everybody knows what that's like when you see that one guy that just likes to get in everybody's face but continuously gets his ass whooped. That's the way 1997 was with Shawn Michaels, with the feud with Shawn Michaels. Then you had the one with WrestleMania 25 where Shawn Michaels was trying to prove that he could beat The Undertaker and break his streak, which we all know what happened. Number 2, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon. Who didn't love that rivalry where Stone Cold just made Vince McMahon's life hell, as I said before? all the stuff that Austin did to this guy and did to his family and did to his friends. It was just awesome. Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. These guys really hated each other. As much as you see them on the screen hating each other, backstage they hated each other more than that. They had real problems, which Vince McMahon used in the storyline. Classic matches between the two of these guys. The first Iron Man match that they had, there were a lot of firsts between these guys. And it was just a lot of great drama, a lot of entertainment. Then you have Jake the Snake Roberts versus Macho Man Randy Savage. I already talked about that earlier. Kane versus The Undertaker. I've talked about that too. You had Kane, who was gone for 20 years, raised by Paul Bearer for 20 years after The Undertaker thought Kane was dead, after Undertaker killed his parents and burnt down the funeral home that they lived in. Kane comes back and he wants to destroy The Undertaker for all the pain that he went through. It was an awesome storyline. Hogan versus Andre. I already talked about that. Austin versus The Undertaker. I'm talking about the first time around where Stone Cold was just getting hot. He was the champion, or he was the champion, but Undertaker cost him the belt by hitting Austin in the head with a shovel, and the feud that they had where Undertaker trying to embalm Austin alive. Oh man, I remember that like it was yesterday. He had Austin on that table. He's like, "You see, Austin, you can't tempt fate. You can't disturb the ministry. I hope that you can hear me, because what you're about to experience is going to be the most imaginable pain and horror that you could ever endure. You see, death, Austin, when one understands it, they become ageless. They become deathless. They become immortal." And then Undertaker goes off to speak in tongues. I don't know what the hell he was talking about, but he's like, "Savannah, Nadal, Anga of Satana, Savannah, Banala, Anala, Nabra." No, and then Kane comes in and saves Austin from being embalmed alive. It was just some awesome stuff. And I remember in the Buried Alive match that they had, Undertaker had me dying there. Because he started to choke Austin. He was choking him just for like a couple of minutes. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Undertaker says, "You're going to die, boy." I was like, what? Oh, man, dude. They couldn't get away with this stuff these days, talking about, "I'm going to kill you or you're going to die." Just classic stuff. Number 8, Ravishing Rick Rude versus The Ultimate Warrior, where you had Ravishing Rick Rude get a fluke win over the Warrior for the Intercontinental title. So you had Ultimate Warrior trying to get his belt back. Awesome rivalry. Mankind versus The Undertaker. As many crazy matches as they had: the Boiler Room Brawl match, the Buried Alive match, the Hell in a Cell match, the No Holds Barred matches. They had so many brawls and battles that it was just crazy. They brought hardcore to WWE. That's just pretty much what it was. You had Mankind that was darker than The Undertaker, that came from God knows where he came from. A guy that felt pain and just did nothing but cause pain to other people. Pulling his hair out, putting the mandible claw, sticking his 2 fingers down the guy's throat or under his tongue, as he likes to say, and applies pressure. It was crazy. He tortured The Undertaker, burning The Undertaker's face and all that stuff. I just never forget it. And last but not least, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Triple H in the storyline of who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin. With the exception of Rikishi being in there, I did it for The Rock. You see, the WWF has always let the Island Boys in, but they always were held back. Guys like your grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia, a well-respected man, could have been a WWF champion, but they held him back. Guys like Jimmy Superfly Snuka could have been a WWE champion, But no, they held him back. Guys like Alpha and Sinka, the Wild Samoans, could have been WWE champions, but no, they held him back. Now, I want to go on record and say that The Rock didn't have a damn thing to do with this whole thing. It was all me. And I'll say it again. I ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin, and to be honest, I do it again. Besides having that in there, it was an awesome rivalry because the 3 stages of hell match that these guys had with each other, man, did they beat the hell out of each other. I've never seen so much action in one match ever. And I'm going to go back and watch it again because that's a match that has replay value. And those are my favorite rivalries, my favorite feuds. Solid Monster, I love your show, man. I listen to it every time it goes up Sunday on Stitcher. I love everything that you do on it, but I have to disagree with one thing that you said. And I'm not bagging on you. I'm not saying anything bad about you. I respect you. But when you said, I remember when you was talking about the top 5 WWE champions. I agree with 4 guys that you picked out of that list. But when you said John Cena had more of an impact as champion than Macho Man Randy Savage, than Bret Hart, than Shawn Michaels, I have to disagree. Not because I'm a Cena hater. It's because it's common sense that Macho Man was a way better wrestler in every way possible. Macho Man was a total package wrestler. He had it all. And he drew a lot of money that year that he was the WWF champion when Hulk Hogan was away filming his movies. Shawn Michaels was a more charismatic champion. Bret Hart was a better wrestler too. His promo skills sucked, but I don't think that John Cena had more of an impact than they did, because when Bret Hart became the champion, he brought in the era of little guys being the champion. He took it away from the big guys always having the titles because Bret Hart was smaller. Shawn Michaels was the same thing because he was a flamboyant guy, and nobody ever pictured a character like him being the champion. A guy, they always wanted a tough guy to be the champion, and Shawn Michaels made other people see it the other way. So I just got to disagree on that. Video gamers, it's time for the video game portion of my show. I did a couple of lists for you guys too. A list of my top 10 favorite PS3 games because I'm a Sony fan through and through. And I got a list of my favorite systems as well too. Starting off with Batman Arkham Asylum, Alice the Madness Returns, Shut Up because that's a great game, taking Alice in Wonderland and turning her into a bloodthirsty killer, putting a knife in her hands and watching her kill things from Wonderland. If only they could do that with other Disney things, like maybe making Cinderella a vampire hunter, giving her a crossbow and a cross and let her go kill vampires. I bet you boys would get into that then. Maybe putting a machine gun in that girl from Beauty and the Beast's hand and watch her slay the beast. That would be awesome. Number 3, Resident Evil Revelations, where they took everything that made Resident Evil awesome back then and they put it in this game. Screw 5 and 6 because they suck. You got number 4, which is Mass Effect 3. Even though the ending really, really sucked, and they came out with a DLC with the new ending that sucks even worse than the original one, it was still an awesome game. Dead Space, Tomb Raider Collections, Uncharted 2, Ghostbusters, where you have the original actors that played the Ghostbusters come back and voice the characters, and you play as the rookie Ghostbuster, and you get to go through a scenario with Peter Venkman, Egon Spengler, Ray Stantz, and Winston Zeddemore. It was awesome, man, and that's the last time you'll hear Harold Ramis' voice because he's gone now. God rest his soul. Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Dragon's Dogma, which is a Capcom game where you get to create your own character and slay dragons and do medieval stuff. It's awesome. My favorite systems, I have 5, which is PS2, which is my all-time favorite system. The PS2 is just awesome. Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo Entertainment System, and the first PlayStation. All these systems were innovative because they came out with games that were never heard of before, and it just revolutionized the video game industry. And it sucks that these things are retired because I would love to play them over and over again. The current game that I'm playing on the Sony PS Vita is Tokiden. Now it's made by the same company that did Dynasty Warriors, but when I saw that, I was like, oh man, Dynasty Warriors. I thought it might be one of those games like Samurai Warriors where you just continuously try to kill respawning enemies and stuff, and it's just, I was like, I didn't want to be bothered at first, but then I looked at some videos and I saw that you can create your own character, you can make your own armor, you got different types of weapons, you get to slay all kinds of demons like Cerberus, the three-headed dog, and you get all these crazy things that you get a team that you get to go out there with and just kill a whole bunch of things. It's awesome. I was like, you get to level up, you get to do all kinds of stuff that I didn't think you could do. It's pretty much like a cross between Monster Hunter and Ragnarok Odyssey and Phantasy Star Portable. It's an awesome game. Check it out. I'm still on chapter 7 because there's this level that I have been trying to beat since I got this game. When I got to chapter 7, I meant to say. You have to fight 4 different giant monsters. They start you off in an area where you're by yourself and they pretty much handicap you against this bastard monster that just does not want to die. He's stronger than your weapons no matter how much you slash at this guy, and I have gotten beat at least about 25 times. And I was just to the point where I was like, oh man, I'm just going to take a break off this game. It was bad, man. But the game is awesome. I also did a small list of video game characters that I feel should have had their own video games, at least one video game of themselves, but I guess the ideas never came up. Starting off with Psylocke from X-Men. You got a hot chick that's a ninja that has telekinetic powers. And nobody made a game about that. You know how many people want to play a game like that? Psylocke is my 3rd favorite X-Men next to Gambit and Wolverine. She was awesome. Can you imagine playing as her, making swords out of her telekinetic powers and going around slashing up enemies and stuff? I think that would be great. Out of all Mortal Kombat characters in the Mortal Kombat world that could have had a game, they had one for Sub-Zero, they had one for Liu Kang and Kung Lao and Silent Monks, which was awesome. They never thought to have a Scorpion game. The best Mortal Kombat character that they had, they never thought to make a game with just him by himself. Can you imagine Mortal Kombat mythologies from an alternate point of view where your Scorpion and Sub-Zero invades your temple and kills your clan and your family? All of a sudden you're in hell and you're fighting hell spawns and specters and stuff trying to get up back to Earth, filled with revenge and rage, going after Sub-Zero, wanting to kill Sub-Zero and going through the prisons, going through all these levels and stuff. That would be epic. And they never thought to make a game like that. Come on. Number 3, Samurai Deeper Kyo. It's a mix of anime portion with the video game portion. I believe that Demonized Kyo should have had his own game. This guy tried to get his original body back, killing different enemies with different sword techniques. A great samurai game. It would have been awesome. I know they had one for the Nintendo DS, but I don't count that as a real game because it sucks. Number 4, Ronin Warriors, where you had 5 guys with 5 ancient types of armor. You had Raoul Wildfire, who had the dual swords. He was the red one. It was pretty much like anime's version of Power Rangers, pretty much. I'm not talking about the Voltron Force because they did finally have a game about that, and it's awesome. I checked it out. You might want to pick it up from the PSN store. But Ronin Warriors needs a game of its own. Tranzor Z or Mazinga Z for the people in Japan. You got a mecha giant that throws rocket punches and chest fires and could create tornadoes through his mouth and has eye lasers and stuff. That would be awesome to play. And I know they had one for Super Nintendo that was only made in Japan, the Famicom, the Super Famicom, I meant to say. It was a pretty good game. And they also had to make cameos in other games, but I would like to see one made in this day and age with today's graphics. I believe that it would sell very well. And last but not least, a martial arts mixed fighting game. Can you imagine a game where you play as Bruce Lee and Jet Li or Jackie Chan or Tony Jaa or Frank Dukes or even Chuck Norris? You know what I'm saying? You got all these guys and a lot of other martial artists in one game fighting each other. different fighting styles and stuff. Can you imagine if Capcom made a game like that? How awesome it would be. But I guess that's just a dream. On another point, I did get a chance to see the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trailer, and I gotta admit that it was not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but I still don't think it's gonna be that good. I don't think it's gonna be anywhere near as great as the original Ninja Turtles movie was. I mean, the turtles are ass ugly in this movie, and they're like 11 feet tall. How you gonna be a ninja being that big? I mean, Ralph destroys a freaking tank. I'm like, yo, nobody's that big except for Juggernaut. Then they had Megan Fox as April O'Neil, but she dropped out at the last minute, so I don't know what the deal was. It says personal reasons, but she's not in the movie now, so they have to reshoot it and find another chick to be her. Fair enough. I'm just going to see how it's going to, pan out, because it might be good, it might not. I'm just going to have to wait and see for when it comes out. Power Ranger fans, I gotta be a kid. I gotta be a kid one more time, dude. I saw a preview where they're bringing back in the new Power Rangers, the Power Rangers Super Mega Force, where they got Rangers from the past. They got TJ as the blue In Space Ranger and Cassie as the pink In Space Ranger. They brought back Tommy. And for all the Power Rangers, the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger fans from the 90s, they brought back Tommy, and he's going to be the Green Ranger one more time. Yes, the original Green Ranger with the flute and everything and the Dragon Sword. When I saw that, I damn near lost it. I forgot I was 28 years old for a second. Man, that's awesome. I got to see that. I cannot wait to see that, because it's been years. It's been years and years and years since I seen the Green Ranger. That is my favorite Power Ranger of all time, with the shield and everything. He was awesome. He was awesome, man. And speaking of that, when I think more and more of it, how the hell did he get his powers back? How the hell did he get? I thought his powers were gone. I thought the Green Ranger's powers were gone. Rita took them away from him. However, if you think deeper, I remember the episode where Tommy was the White Ranger and he ended up somehow fighting the Green Ranger again in the Wild Wild West. So that Green Ranger could be that Green Ranger that Tommy left back in the past in the Wild Wild West when he was the Green Ranger back then. I don't know. It's all one big confusion thing. I don't care. But to see him wear the Green Ranger costume again and be the Green Ranger is epic. I got to check it out. Anime fans and otakus, I did get a chance to finish watching The Girl with the Third Blue Eye, and my grade for this anime is a B+, because it kind of lacks in the story a bit, but it's still a good anime to watch, and I recommend it. You guys should check it out. It follows this girl named Honoka, who's 17 years old. She was born with the third blue eye in her head, which is pretty much a port to data and communications of all machines. She completes missions of getting rid of giant spiders and ants and doing transportation missions in a giant tank that was given to her by her grandfather. She was born into a world where 80% of humans are dead. They were killed in a devastating war, and they're being policed by a group called Hyperus, who are born with the red jewels, the red eyes on their foreheads, which pretty much gives them all data and all communications to all machines, and they keep people from interacting with technos, as they call them, technology, and doing all kinds of taboo and doing all kinds of crazy things. It's a great anime. Check it out. I also did a small list of animes that I feel should have had second seasons, because there were a couple of them that had endings that just left questions in my mind. And it's like, what happened after that? Starting off with number 1, Samurai Deeper Kyo. At the end of this anime, Kiyoshiro and Demonized Kyo get their bodies back, and then they just disappear. What happened after that? Did they fight each other? Did they become friends? What happened? Like, no, they didn't show what happened at all. It just ended like that. I would like to see at least a movie or OVA or something of what happened after that series was over. Speed Grapher follows a guy named Saiga, who has to rescue this chick, some chick that was being tortured wherever she was at. I forgot what her name was, but he did rescue her at the end. He lost his eyesight because he blew his eyes out after using the camera, because he had some kind of special ability where instead of using a gun, he had ammo in a camera. Whatever he took a picture of explodes. And that's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? But at the end, did they get married? Did they have kids? Did he adopt her? No, they didn't show what happened. He just rescued her, and that was it. Fully Cooley is another one. It was only 6 episodes long. They didn't show what happened to Haruko after all that happened. They didn't show what happened to Naota. They didn't show what happened to Momiji. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows what happened to any of them. I'd like to see a second season so maybe I can understand what the hell the damn thing is about, because Fully Cooley has to be the most confusing anime ever created. You know, and knowing is the same thing too, because I don't know what the hell that's about. I watched the whole entire thing and couldn't understand what the hell they were talking about, what the hell the plot was about. It was a good anime, but damn, I mean, brain teaser. Number 4, Hellsing Ultimate. We only got about 5 episodes of that. 5 episodes, which was an hour long. You had Alucard, the vampire. You had the police girl that he bit to save her life. You really didn't see what happened. I don't know if it got canceled or what happened, but they just didn't finish out the story, and I just wanted to know what happened. And the last one, Witchblade. I would like to see a second season of that, because you see Asane at the end. It shows her dying. The Witchblade kills her. But they could have had a second season, maybe having, her daughter, Reiko or Ryoko, I think her name is. Maybe she gains the Witchblade and has her own series, I meant to say. That would be pretty good. I would like to see that. And last but not least, I got into a conversation with a coworker at work. We was talking about epic fights that never happened, but we would love to see. And we got into the subject of Bruce Lee versus Mike Tyson. And we just got into an argument. He was like, man, he thinks that Mike Tyson would win. And I think that Bruce Lee would win because Bruce Lee was quick as lightning. Mike Tyson, yes, he was a beast, and he was one of the best boxers of all time. But if you can't catch what you're trying to hit, what good does that do? Bruce Lee had an art form called the art of fighting without fighting. He used his opponent's movements to counter their attacks. So I think he would kick Mike Tyson's ass, point blank. You know what I'm saying? Because Bruce Lee just did things that normal humans could not do. Like, I watched a video where he took his hand. He wasn't even that far away from the guy. He took his fingers, and he barely pushed the guy, and the guy went like 3 feet back with very little force. But then when he really did a punch, the guy had a pad. He really did a punch. He pushed that guy 6.5 feet back. Can you imagine if he really hit somebody with all his force? He would probably kill the guy. Same thing with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was in his prime. He was a powerhouse, busting people up. But I just think in a fight, Bruce Lee would get him. And can you imagine how much money people would throw into a fight like that? You know how many people would love to see an epic battle like that? The greatest martial artist in the world versus the greatest boxer of his time. I'm still an Ali fan through and through, but Mike Tyson was the best in the 90s. That's it for episode 6 this week. I hope y'all enjoyed the last 5 episodes. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is your boy KC. I'll check y'all out later. Peace.